The classroom buzzed with whispers as the doors slid open with a quiet hiss. Heads turned, alien eyes blinking in curiosity. At the threshold stood a human girl, tall and calm, her long hair tied neatly behind her. Her boots clanged softly against the metallic floor as she stepped in, utterly unconcerned with the murmurs around her. "Ah, she's late again," one green-skinned student muttered, rolling his eyes. "She's not just late," whispered another, a thin blue alien with antennas twitching nervously. "She crushed the rebellion on Viridian all by herself. She probably slept through half the galaxy this morning." The human girl didn't bother to answer. Her eyes scanned the room, settling briefly on the professor, a tall, gray-scaled being with 4 arms and an expression carved from stone. "Captain Alara Vance," the professor said, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. "Your reputation precedes you, though I hope it doesn't excuse habitual tardiness." Alara smiled faintly, slipping into her seat at the back. "Traffic," she said simply, as if navigating through war zones and planetary uprisings were a minor inconvenience comparable to school corridors. The classroom erupted in quiet laughter. Even the professor couldn't hide a slight twitch at the corner of his mouth. Alara's reputation was more than just whispers. The rebellion on Viridian had been fierce. The planet's leaders had underestimated humans, believed them fragile, weak, and slow to react. But Alara had proven them wrong. With only a small team and a limited strike force, she had neutralized the leaders of the rebellion, disarmed the weapons, and restored order, all without causing unnecessary civilian casualties. No alien in the academy had expected a single human to perform such a feat. Not only had she succeeded, she had done it with an almost casual precision that made observers question their own methods. As the lecture began, Alara leaned back in her chair. The professor discussed planetary strategy, interstellar logistics, and the psychology of rebellion. Most students listened attentively, scribbling notes, but several kept glancing at her. They were fascinated and intimidated. "Now," the professor said, pointing to a holo display showing a distant star system, "we will discuss crisis management, specifically when a rebellion erupts in a politically unstable sector." Alara's eyes flicked to the map. A small red dot pulsed on the screen and her stomach tightened. That dot wasn't part of the lesson. It was a real-time alert. Another rebellion had started on nearby planet Carathis. The aliens around her froze. A council had already been called on the situation, and everyone assumed they would need to send a large fleet to deal with it. But Alara didn't wait. "I'll handle it," she said calmly, standing. The professor's multiple eyes narrowed. "Excuse me, you? Another human alone? That's reckless," Alara shrugged. "Reckless is sending a fleet and causing a war. Precision is better." Some students gasped. Others whispered nervously. A few, those who had seen her last victory, nodded silently. "Do you even understand the complexity of the situation?" the professor demanded. "This rebellion is larger than Viridian. It has allies in orbit. It has mercenaries. "I understand," Alara interrupted gently. "I've crushed a rebellion before." "I know the numbers don't matter if you strike at the right points and understand your enemy." A murmur ran through the room. Humans were known for their recklessness, their bravery, and sometimes their genius, but rarely all three at once and never in ways that aliens could predict. Alara had that rare mix. The council convened, and Alara found herself standing before a group of alien leaders. They argued among themselves, debating whether a human could handle the situation. Some feared sending her alone. Others argued that she was the only one capable of fast surgical action. Alara didn't argue. She simply looked at the star map of Carathis, noted the rebellion's key locations, and started giving instructions. She assigned her team of specialists, 3 humans and 2 aliens who trusted her completely, to critical points. She devised a plan that relied on speed, stealth, and strategy. It was daring, yes, but also perfectly calculated. As preparations continued, flashbacks to the Viridian mission played in her mind. How she had infiltrated the rebel headquarters disguised as one of their own, listening to their plans. How she had anticipated every move, predicting their mistakes before they even realized them. How she had used minimal force, only striking when absolutely necessary, capturing leaders rather than killing them. Humans had an uncanny ability to combine logic with intuition, to see patterns that others could not, to act decisively when others hesitated, That had always set them apart in a galaxy full of species that relied on brute strength, rigid procedure, or sheer numbers. Ilara's team completed their final checks, and she glanced at the council one last time. "I'll need clearance to use the fastest route," she said. "I don't need a fleet. I only need precision." The alien leaders exchanged uneasy glances. One finally nodded. "Very well. But if you fail, I won't," Ilara said simply. The transport ship hummed beneath her feet. She looked out of the viewport at the stars streaking past. Time felt different in the void, faster, sharper, more focused. She adjusted her controls, ensuring her course would take her directly above the rebellion's stronghold. Her team worked quietly. Each member trusted her instincts, knowing that humans sometimes thought differently, but effectively. As they approached Karathis, Ilara reviewed her plan again. The rebellion's forces were scattered in several strongholds across the planet's capital. She would strike the leaders first, then neutralize weapon caches, all while avoiding civilian casualties. Her methods were unconventional, but she had learned that fear of unpredictability often worked in humans' favor. Alien commanders would expect straightforward tactics, but humans rarely followed predictable patterns. The ship dropped from hyperspace, silently skimming the atmosphere. Ilara's heart beat steadily. She felt excitement, not fear. Challenges were opportunities, and she thrived on them. Her team landed near the outskirts of the main city. Shadows of the rebellion's outposts stretched across the night like dark fingers. Ilara led the way, moving swiftly, silently. She signaled her team to split, each taking a critical point. The first strike was at a weapons depot. Using a combination of technical skill and improvisation, her team disarmed automated defenses and secured the weapons. Minimal casualties. Maximum effect next was the communication hub. Ilara infiltrated it, bypassing security protocols the aliens had thought unbreakable. Within moments, she had control over the city's communication grid. Rebel forces began to receive false orders, confusing their leaders. Finally, she approached the rebel command center. She moved with quiet confidence, slipping past guards and traps. Inside, she found the leaders huddled, planning their next moves. She stepped into the room, her presence alone causing them to pause. "I suggest you surrender," she said calmly. "Violence won't work here." The leaders laughed, dismissing her. But one glance at the team outside, and the subtly controlled city systems made them hesitate. Ilara had already predicted their moves. She anticipated fear, pride, and desperation, and used it against them. By dawn, the rebellion was neutralized. Leaders were captured, civilians were unharmed, and the city remained intact. Ilara's team regrouped. Exhausted but victorious, she allowed herself a brief smile. Humans did things differently, yes, but they got results. Back in the classroom, Ilara finally walked in. Her hair was slightly disheveled, her uniform showing faint traces of dirt. But her composure was perfect. The professor raised an eyebrow. "Captain Vance, your entrance is noted." Ilara shrugged, sliding into her seat. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic." The alien stared. Whispers of awe filled the room. Humans. They really were unpredictable. And perhaps, just perhaps, they were exactly what the galaxy needed. The alarm blared across the academy just hours after Ilara had returned to her classroom. Her boots barely cooled from the last mission. Another rebellion had erupted, this time on the planet Karathis. The council debated sending an entire fleet. But Ilara had already volunteered herself. She didn't need numbers. She needed precision, timing, and the element of surprise. The council murmured nervously. "A single human cannot," one leader began, but Ilara cut them off with a calm, unshakable tone. "I can," she said simply. Alien eyes widened. Some were impressed, some were terrified. But none dared stop her. Humans were unusual that way. Bold, unpredictable, and frighteningly effective. Her team was small, 3 humans who had trained under her and 2 aliens who trusted her instincts implicitly. Together they boarded a sleek, silent transport ship, designed to drop them directly above the rebel command center. No alarms, no unnecessary force, just a surgical strike. As the stars streaked past the viewport, Ilara outlined the plan once more. "We hit the weapons depots first. Then we control communications. After that, the leaders will find themselves boxed in, with no escape. Minimal force, maximum control." Her team nodded. They trusted her because she had proven herself before. Humans had a way of seeing things others missed, patterns, weaknesses, and opportunities that no algorithm or protocol could predict. The first target was a weapons depot. Shadows stretched across the city as the team landed on the outskirts. Alien guards patrolled in predictable patterns. Ilara smiled. Predictable was easy to exploit. "Two of you take the east wing," she whispered. "I'll go through the main gate. Distract them just enough to make them think they're in control." The operation was flawless. Automated defenses were disabled. Weapon caches secured. Not a single civilian harmed. Ilara's team moved like shadows, confident in the strategy. Humans excelled in improvisation, and she knew exactly when to bend the rules without breaking them. Next came the communications hub. Ilara slipped inside, bypassing security protocols that alien engineers believed unhackable. In moments, the rebellion's entire communication network was under her control. Rebel squads received contradictory orders, confusion spreading like wildfire. The city was already turning into a chessboard, and Ilara was 3 moves ahead. The final target, the rebel command center, loomed above them. Guards were numerous, but Ilara had already predicted their positioning. Using misdirection and carefully timed distractions, she infiltrated the building. Her team moved with her, covering every entrance, ready for any challenge. Inside, the leaders of the rebellion were gathered, confident that they controlled the city. They laughed when they saw a single human standing at the door. "You alone?" one sneered. Ilara's eyes were calm, sharp, and focused. "You're outnumbered," she said. "Outmaneuvered. You can surrender peacefully or things will get messy. Your choice." The leaders laughed again, but hesitation flickered in their eyes. Something was wrong. Orders weren't reaching their troops. Confusion spread among their ranks. Ilara had already manipulated the battlefield from afar. Humans didn't just fight. They thought, they predicted, they controlled outcomes without brute force. Suddenly, a distant explosion rocked the building. Reinforcements from the rebellion's outer perimeter were trying to break in. Her team responded instantly, neutralizing threats with precision. Alien mercenaries assumed that sheer numbers would win, but Ilara's tactics made every move count. A blue-skinned alien soldier shouted, "We can't hold them off." "Then don't hold them off," Ilara said sharply. "Lead them exactly where I want. Predictability is weakness. Use it," they did. The attackers fell into traps, miscommunications, and dead ends. By the time they realized the truth, the city was under human control. Not through overwhelming force, but through strategy, improvisation, and understanding the enemy's psychology, things humans excelled at. Finally, Ilara confronted the rebellion's leader, a tall, armored alien with jagged horns and glowing eyes. He was proud, defiant, convinced that a human could never truly defeat him. "Why do you hesitate?" he growled. "I have more soldiers than you could ever hope to fight." Ilara stepped closer, her expression calm. "It's not numbers that win wars. It's understanding timing and knowing when to strike. You've been predictable. Your soldiers make the same mistakes over and over. That's why you lose." The leader's horned face twisted in frustration. "You think humans are clever?" Ilara nodded. "Not clever, precise, adaptive, capable of thinking in ways no one expects. That's what humans are." She paused, letting her words sink in. Then she offered a choice. Surrender peacefully and ensure the survival of your people, or fight and lose everything. The alien hesitated, then slowly lowered his weapons. The rebellion ended without mass casualties. Civilians cheered, rebels were rounded up safely, and the city's infrastructure remained intact. Ilara's team regrouped outside, exhausted but triumphant. Back at the academy, Ilara returned, her uniform showing faint smudges, her boots worn, but her composure flawless. The professor raised an eyebrow, clearly aware of what had happened. "Captain Vance," he said slowly, "you return yet again." "On time, I see," Ilara smiled faintly. "Traffic," she said, sliding into her seat as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. Whispers filled the classroom. Humans, they realized, were not just different. They were unpredictable, capable, and necessary. Strength wasn't measured in size or technology alone. Humans brought ingenuity, adaptability, and courage to a galaxy that often underestimated them. Her classmates watched, some in awe, some in disbelief. They had witnessed something remarkable. Not violence, not chaos, but human brilliance at work. And the most human thing about it? Elara didn't boast. She didn't demand praise. She simply did what had to be done, then returned to her studies as if she were late to class, not the savior of an entire planet. The professor shook his head slightly, muttering to himself, I don't know how they do it. These humans. Elara leaned back, arms crossed, her eyes distant for a moment as she thought about the countless stars and planets that still waited, unaware that humans were quietly shaping the galaxy. She smiled. They had no idea what was coming next.